This is a eulogy that I delivered at the funeral of my college roommate and a best friend, Bill Manning. How do you summarize the life of someone who has been a best friend? What words of comfort do you send to comfort his family? How do you describe in these brief few moments a friendship that lasted over 50 years? Finally, how do you say goodbye? We met in the fall of our freshman year at Davidson College, long before the term mission statement was part of the business jargon. A precursor to that, David had written on their letterhead, Davidson College, a small Christian college in the heart of the two Carolinas, a safe place for a boy and a good place for an investment. Sounds sort of hokey today, doesn't it? However, like most young men at that age, we reveled in the freedom from our parental control and exercised our newfound freedom quite robustly. To use the biblical term, I would say that we were, quote, in the far country. As a comfort to Boo and the boys, I will simply say, what happened at Davidson stayed at Davidson. I tell you this before many of you did not know Bill Manning before he became a husband, father, before he wore his business suit and wore those Allen Edmonds tassel loafers. College days aside, we went our separate ways. I went to dental school and Bill to the Army and a tour in Japan. 3 years later, we renewed our friendship when he returned home, and I got him a blind date that instantly became and remained the love of his life. My wife, Green, also known as Mary Jane, and I enjoyed their courtship in places like Virginia Beach, Myrtle Beach, Morehead City, until ultimately they married in Martinsville. After a short time with a bank in Morehead City, where Ned was born, they moved to Kinston, where Hooker and Scott were born, and they made lifelong friends, many of whom are here today and others have passed on. Through the years, our friendship flourished, with summer vacations at Morehead, playing putt-putt golf, evenings at the Coral Bay Club, days spent swimming, and reliving our escapades from our days at Davidson. Our children's lives became intertwined. Ned found Pitty, and my daughter Whitney became the oldest and the only one who could drive the others around in our van. Before closing, let me read to you a letter that I wrote to Bill about a year or so before he died. Dear Bill, sorry to hear that you've had a setback, but glad to hear that treatment is available that will help you. While cancer is bad enough, this voice thing is an additional bitch. Boo said that your doctor said that you really were a warrior, and I certainly totally agree with that statement. And that is one of the reasons that I'm writing this letter. Our friendship began in the fall of 1956, when after 6 weeks, I had all I could take of Bobo McCatherine and moved out and moved to the 4th floor of Watts. Can't remember whether you were living alone or whether Blunt was still there. The thing that impressed me then and still impresses me is your demeanor, always calm and unflappable, not adjectives that in any way describe me. Beneath that calmness is a bedrock of care and empathy, and at least I have those two attributes as well. I am brash and a groundbreaker, and you are the one who comes behind and smooths over everything that I have stirred up. We were a great team. I also envy the way you are always impeccably and appropriately dressed, whether it was with loafers with no socks or a khaki suit with those tassel loafers. You were and always are a role model for attire. You not only dressed well, but also wore clothes so very well. Never rumpled, never frumpled in any way, like most of us are after a few hours. You have a quite subtle way that goes in tandem with your aforementioned demeanor. When you and Boo decided to add Preston to Scott's name, you did it with very little fanfare in such a Bill Manning way. There's a difference between style and class, and you, my friend, have class. I take joy in the many memories that we share. Road trips, Ocean Drive, watching the children at Jungle Golf, the Coral Bay Club, just to name a few. The one memory that is really benchmarked in my mind is the first date that you had with Boo. We were at Virginia Beach. Why is that memory so benchmarked in my mind? It's because I get credit for introducing you to the love of your life, who I have heard you refer to many times, not as Boo, but as Pretty. Without Boo, there may have been a Ned, but it would not be the same a fine young man as Ned is today. Certainly, no one named Samuel Arthur Hooker Manning would have existed. Perhaps including my name with Scott's name was your way of thanking me for finding Pretty for you. This letter is long overdue. I hope you find it as meaningful in reading it as I found meaningful in writing it. All too often, we miss the opportunity of letting people know how much we love and appreciate them. And you do know how much I love and appreciate you. Thanks for adding so much meaning to my life, PD. And now a final story, my mother and the hurricane. During one hurricane season, my mother had invited 3 of her friends to come down to the beach for a week of eating seafood, playing bridge, and the things that little old ladies do. Before the friends got there, a hurricane settled on Moorhead, and Mother had to evacuate to Kinston, where the Mannings took her into their house. Expecting to only stay a day or two, she only brought about 1 change of clothes and an overnight bag. Unfortunately, the hurricane settled on Kinston and remained there for over a week. Now think about that. A house guest you weren't expecting, 80 years old, with only 1 change of clothes, and a hurricane coming around, couldn't get out, and certainly a high level of cabin fever. But the Mannings handled that so very, very well. Later, my mother would be very effusive in discussing how thoughtful and kind the Mannings were. But the story doesn't end there. At the end of the week, they loaded my mother up and sent her back to Blacksburg and said that they would go down, pack up her clothes, and mail them to them. As I said, they drove down to the beach, packed up the clothes, and mailed everything to Mother. Boo, I hope she reimbursed you. Taking care of Mother was a team effort, and I think we would all agree that Boo and Bill were that team. During these last 3 years, Boo, you really stepped up and did a yeoman's job of caring for our friend Bill.